Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. This Oklahoma defense has been one of the coolest stories in college football in terms of the dramatic turnaround you saw from the 2022 year to the 2023 year. Kind of want to take a deep dive into this Oklahoma defense and talk about what makes this group so special. You take a look at some of the numbers. 16.1 points per game. That is top 10 in the country. They are number one in the country in negative plays forced. This is an Oklahoma team that, yes, it's a really good offense, right? Dylan Gabriel, a lot of talented wide receivers. But this Oklahoma defense, if Oklahoma does something special in 2023, I really do think it's going to be on the backs of a defense that is dramatically undervalued to the national media. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys, and especially the Oklahoma Sooner fans. It's no secret, I love talking about this program. The amount of support y'all show, it truly does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll be shouting out a bunch of players and a bunch of different schematic things I've noticed. If I leave something out, please let me know in the comment section. Again, best part about doing this is talking ball with you guys, learning from you guys. Without further ado, let's get into this one. And the first thing, and this is the story, is we talk about what Brent Venables wanted to bring to this Oklahoma defense. And probably the biggest switch between Alex Grinch and Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables in this culture is playing downhill and smothering opposing offenses, right? When Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch were in town, this was much more of a team that we're just going to try to score more points than you. We're going to let you move the football on us. We're going to try to hold you to a field goal in the red zone. But the identity of this team is going to be outscoring you guys on the football field. This is dramatically switched. I mean, and you saw some growing pains last year. They were playing aggressive, giving up big plays. This year, the big plays are limited, and those negative plays have been absolutely massive. You take a look, Oklahoma averaging 9.3 tackles for loss per game. That is tied for first in the country with Texas A&M. And I think it starts up front. And we said this heading into the year. I think the one place where Oklahoma got dramatically better in was the depth. You take a look at the newcomers that have been producing for Oklahoma. Rondell Bothroyd, Dejon Terry, Jacob Lacey, a bunch of guys. They added just depth to this defensive line. And then you take a look at what they're doing. And Trace Ford is averaging, his average depth of tackle is negative 1.3. Trace Ford's been a dog. Jordan Kelly's at 1 yard. Isaiah Coe 1.4. Dejon Terry 0.2. They're winning up front with the defensive line. And more importantly, they're keeping their linebackers free. Danny Stutsman, for my money, and I've said this before, the best linebacker in the country. Now, his average depth of tackle, 1.4 yards down the field. That is ridiculous number for a linebacker as productive as Danny Stutsman is. And I think, yes, Danny Stutsman, a phenomenal football player, phenomenal linebacker. But I think a large story is they're winning up front. They're keeping these linebackers clean, allowing them to get downhill, play with that hair on fire, and create those negative plays. And you're really starting to see some complementary defense, because when you create those negative plays, force teams into those third and long situations, the pass rush, although, and this is an interesting one, if you like to go out on Saturdays and not watch the game and check the box score, you wouldn't look at this Oklahoma defensive line and say, oh, they're really getting after the quarterback. Only 6.1% sack percentage. That's 69th in the country. But you look at the havoc that they're creating, how many clean pockets they're not allowing. You take a look at pass rush win rate, right? Jonah Lalu, to give a little context, pass rush win rate, if you're on the inside and you have double-digit percentage of a pass rush win rate, that's really, really good. Jonah Lalu, 13.8. Ethan Downs, 13.5. PJ Adebari, who I think is going to continue to get more reps, a 14.5% pass rush win rate. Jordan Kelly, 12.8. Trace Ford, 13.2. Rondell Bothroyd, 12. Like, that just speaks to the same thing we've been talking about. One, depth. They're cycling multiple guys, different guys in. The pass rush doesn't stop. And I think more importantly, everyone on that defensive line can get after the passer. I mean, Dejon Terry's been doing a good job. He's mostly got a kind of a guy that is stopping the run, but he can get after the passer. When you have 6, 7, 8 guys that can all produce in the pass rush, that's what you're seeing. Again, it's not necessarily showing up in the sack percentage, although I think it will soon, but you're seeing not a lot of quarterbacks have clean pockets against the Sooner defense. The pass rush, if you check in the box score, maybe it doesn't stand out, but when you watch the film and look at some of those advanced numbers, this pass rush has been really, really good. Now, another storyline that I don't think gets talked enough about is how good are you on money downs? Oklahoma's defense has been phenomenal. You take a look at third down conversion, 28% is what the opposition is averaging third down conversions. That's number 5 in the country. This defense has been elite getting off the field on third down. And that kind of goes back to what we wanted to see Oklahoma do heading into the season. We knew this was a talented team. Can they show up when it matters most? Third down, massive, massive plays in the game. Can you find a way to get off the field? Oklahoma been doing that at a phenomenal rate. Then you look at red zone. Teams are only scoring 71% of the time in the red zone. That is 16th in the country. Heading into UCF, I believe they were top 5. And then more importantly, like you're not going to beat this Oklahoma team kicking field goals. They've faced 14 red zone appearances. They've only given up 5 touchdowns. Last week was the first time they've given up a rushing touchdown in the red zone all year. They've been really good in the red zone, taking away the ball, forcing teams to come out empty-handed, but also forcing field goals, which again, you're forcing field goals in the red zone. Those are wins. That's what you want. And when you're trying to win a national championship, a Big 12 championship, if you force teams to kick field goals, especially with how good this Oklahoma offense can be, that is a winning recipe of football. And again, going back to this Oklahoma team playing their best when it matters most, which is something you just didn't really see last year. Now, going to the next thing, and this is another thing that you kind of expected Brent Venables to have first year, but you certainly see it in the second year, forcing turnovers, right? 2.1 turnovers per game. That's top 10 in the country. A 4.88% interception rate. That's number 4 in the country. Bunch of ball hawks back there, right? Peyton Bowen doesn't even have a pick this season. He's going to have one by the end of the season, at least one. This is a secondary that you watch the game. They're just getting hands on footballs. They're getting in passing lanes. They're tipping footballs up. They're just making plays. They're trying to find the football. And most importantly, they're playing aggressive, right? They're trying to create these negative plays, create these turnovers, but they're not really giving up the big play. Now, you saw it a little bit with UCF, and you got to clean that up. That being said, the ability to balance, we're going to play really aggressive, try to create negative plays, try to create turnovers, but not giving up the big play. That's a hard balance to draw. I think Oklahoma is doing a really good job. And the last thing that you can talk about before we get into what we saw from UCF is, I mean, the culture is just different. It feels different. These guys are playing, and it might be an element of like that second year in the defensive system. As a Michigan fan, when we first moved from a new defensive coordinator, there were some growing pains. I think you saw some growing pains for Ohio State with Jim Knowles. I think you saw some growing pains with Dan Lanning out in Oregon. You even saw some growing pains with Kirby Smart his first year at Georgia. But that second year, when the guys on the defense are not more, they're less thinking about what's happening, and they're more playing downhill, and they're playing aggressive, and they're just kind of reacting because they know their role in this defense. I think you're starting to see that with this Oklahoma team. Again, they kept a lot of production from last year. A lot of these guys were either in this program or have a lot of experience coming in. Guys like Rondo Bothroyd, 6-year guy. I think that's the story, or a big part of the story, for why you're seeing kind of a flip of the narrative and how this team just looks on defense. Now, going to the UCF game, and there's been like this narrative, and kind of looking at my notes, that Oklahoma is not good against the run. They said it on the broadcast. They've given up 3.4 yards per carry to opposing teams. That's 28th in the country. Yeah, that's, I mean, to Oklahoma standards and how good this defense is, maybe that's not great. Still 28th in the country. But when you look at it, I think that's a little misleading because they've played some of the best rushing offenses that you've seen in the country, right? UCF, heading into that game, was one of the most prolific rushing attacks that you've seen in Oklahoma. The first 4 drives, 3 straight, 3 and outs with punts? It was a group that, I mean, was playing smothering. They gave up some big plays. But outside of that, like on an average down-to-down basis, that defense really did dominate that game for most of the game. You played Texas. I got to hand it to Texas. They have a really good offensive line with a stable of running backs. They can run the ball extremely well. And you played Cincinnati. And Cincinnati, I get the offense ain't great, but that rushing attack has been really good with Emory Jones and Kiner that they have in the backfield. So I look at this Oklahoma team, and I don't really get that narrative that they can't stop the run, because I think they can. They got a lot of good guys on the defensive line who are keeping the linebackers clean. And Danny Stutsman, Jaron Kanik, especially Stutsman, has been playing phenomenal football. You look at this Oklahoma team, I think it's really well balanced. And I think it's sometimes hard for this defense to put up great numbers because the offense has been choppy at times, is probably the word I would use, where they can move the ball and score fast, but the defense is right back on the field. Or they go fast and have a 3-and-out, and the defense is back on the field in like 2 minutes of real time. And so when you look at this Oklahoma defense, it's not always fair to just look at points per game, yards per game, because they're playing opposite of an offense that's going to force you to play a lot as a defense. And they are playing a lot, but they're playing from a down by down basis. This team is playing exponentially better than they've had. And most importantly, forcing those turnovers. You give Dillon Gabriel in this offense a few extra possessions, that's going to be a difference. And I mean, you look at the Texas game. That game don't get any closer. And it was the difference in that game. If this Oklahoma team can continue to create negative plays, get those 3-and-out / turnovers, and get that ball back to that offense and give Dillon Gabriel as many touches that he can get during a game, that's the recipe for this Oklahoma defense. If they continue well in the red zone, this is a defense that, I mean, it goes back to what we said all year. If you're an Oklahoma fan, I know it stung when Lincoln Riley left, but getting Brent Venables, and there were some growing pains year one, I think was the best thing that could happen to this program, because you're going into the SEC with the defense that looks different, that feels different, that looks like an SEC defense. Quite frankly, you go into that SEC conference with Lincoln Riley, it's going to be tough sledding. Like, you can't just focus on the offense and quarterback play and expect to win games in the SEC. And I think Brent Venables has taken a more encompassing approach to this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And you look at the Sooners defense, that's an SEC defense. That's what you want to see in that conference. You guys know I rock with the Sooners. I'm fired up for this Oklahoma team. And a really big test against Kansas, who wants to run the football again. So hopefully they can dominate and kind of get that narrative off the back that they can't stop the run on the defensive side of the ball. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.